Welcome everyone on today's Metal3 Community meeting. My name is Adam Rosman. I will be your host today. Today is 1st of March 2023, and as usual, we would start with introductions. And as I checked the list, I think everyone was already here at least once. Can you hear me well, by the way?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Okay, so a few reminders as usual. If you feel your project would benefit from participating as an official adopter, you can also do so by adding yourself to this MD file, your organization to this MD file in the Metal3 docs following this link. That would greatly help the project. There are no requirements, just that you are using the project and you don't really have to do anything. The other one is the incubation proposal. This week I had some limited time to again look into this and answer Dimitri's comments and actually put here some features that have been introduced since the project's entry to sandbox, CNCF sandbox status. And I guess it's not everything, it's just what I have found in the previous two annual reports. Please feel free to look into the features, and if you don't see something here that's dear to your heart, then please just add it here. And it's also, that was also a suggestion from Kashif that we could extend these one-liners into small descriptions, 1 or 2 sentences, and that could a bit better show what we are doing. So feel free to do that also. And then I also checked our alignment with other CNCF projects. I checked Medicates, that was mentioned by Dimitri. Medicates is not CNCF as I understand. But we actually align with the cluster API. And I'm not sure if the oops, this is an incorrect link, but I'm not sure if the vSphere provider is a CNCF project, but that's another provider and it is using our IPAM, so that could be another potential alignment. Yeah, so that's all. Please feel free to comment on this issue or on this document. Yeah, and I have actually done some pre-triaging. I don't think we need to go through again 50 times over the same old issues. I went through them and there is only one issue that needs discussion. So I think we have time for the other topics, and the main highlight will be Leonard's devenv POC. So I think we can start with that. And I stop sharing. Just a second, I stop sharing. Okay.
All right, then I will try to share my screen again. It was this one. And then everything disappears. And yeah, it looks like it's sharing the correct one. I will first just show this one. I put the link in the meeting notes to a pull request that, I mean, it goes to this repo where we just add stuff from investigations, documentation about various things. So this is, I mean, I'm not trying to change the devenv. That's out of scope here. But what I'm trying to do here is show a simpler, more basic devenv that doesn't try to do all the stuff that the current devenv does. The current devenv is both cloning and building and setting up all kinds of network config and stuff on the machine where it's running. It's not really something you want to run on your own laptop. It just takes over the whole thing and has a lot of assumptions on where it runs. So this is an attempt at something a bit simpler. I'm not saying it would replace devenv, but at least it gives some ideas about how we can simplify it. Yeah, the main idea is I created the bare metal hosts. They are backed by libvirt VMs, just like the normal devenv, VBMC also just as there. Then I use Minikube, which we do use in the CentOS use case. Also that in libvirt VM. So I'm using this KVM2 driver. That makes the network layout really simple because I can just make sure all of it is in the same network. Yeah, I will just go through and show you a bit how it works and try to do a live demo of it also. Feel free to stop me whenever if you have any questions or something like that. Yeah, VBMC I deployed in Minikube. Ironic also runs in Minikube. I can show you here what I have actually. Get pods and let's zoom that. Okay, so this looks pretty familiar, I hope, from a normal devenv setup. One thing that differs is we only have 4 Ironic containers. I got rid of, let's think, MariaDB. Yeah, that's already gone in some cases. DNS mask is not needed. And keep alive D. How I got around keep alive D and DNS mask, well, keep alive D could still be needed in more advanced cases, but for me, it's just a simple Minikube. It's not changing IP anytime soon. But DNS mask was not needed because we have DNS mask also that comes with libvirt. So I'm using that DHCP server and also the same server for Pixie booting. And that can all be done without any, like, with minimal config in libvirt. I'm only doing this part. I'm putting Minikube's IP so it knows where to find the images to boot. That's like all the changes I make. This is not the nicest part of the setup, where I have to first start Minikube to get an IP, then enter the IP there, and then restart Minikube and the network again. But we could do this in other ways. It's completely possible to do it in nicer ways. This was just the first simplest way to get it working. What else? Let me check the notes I put here. Yeah, Ironic runs in Minikube, very similar to the CentOS tests we already have exposed through the Minikube IP, which means that the bare metal host VMs can easily reach it because it's in the same network. Yeah, DHCP and Pixie server from libvirt, as I mentioned. And the image server is running as a container on the host. That is also not very different from what we have. VBMC is running in Minikube. That is probably different from what we have. I just put it there because it's easy for Ironic to reach it if it's in the same place. And then it goes through SSH to the host. That I think is actually the same as in the devenv, but I'm not using the root SSH. That's a bit nicer for, yeah, if you want to run it on your own laptop, probably don't want root SSH. I deploy BMO and Ironic without the magic deploy script that adds all the certificates and stuff. This is not like fancy in any way. I just copied the customizations from the BMO repo. I changed a few things to make it work, and yeah, just using them statically here. I think that could be useful also in other scenarios. As long as we have a predictable IP, there is no need to make changes to these. And the most useful thing about having them like already working customizations that you can use directly without modifications is that you can use them remotely. You don't have to like pull down the repo, go in and, for example, add a certificate or these config files for them to work, like just to do customized build. So that's something I think we can improve based on this. Where was I here? Yes, then the probably trickiest part was how to do the control plane endpoint when deploying a real workload cluster. I decided to document 3 different ways to do it, from very basic reserve IP through DHCP and only have like one that only works for one control plane node, and you can never like update it or anything. But it's super simple, so that's why I documented it. I also tried using IPAM, which that gives a good grasp of how IPAM fits into this. And then the most advanced through HA proxy could have been done through keep alive D also. I just happen to like this way better because I don't have to put like keep alive D on the nodes themselves. I can run HA proxy somewhere outside and just load balance over the nodes. But I will show how that works. Let's see how I should put this. So in the demo environment I have here, I have already set up Minikube. I have initialized with cluster control init, deployed BMO and Ironic. I have set up the image server, and I have created 2 hosts. Let me create one more so you see how that goes. So I have a small little script. It's just a few lines for creating a libvirt VM, adding it in VBMC, and creating the like a bare metal host object for it as well. The second argument here is the port to expose it on in VBMC. So I will go ahead and create host 2. I have there host 0 and host 1. This goes really fast. And there it is. And now it's, so you can see just the registering and inspecting phase also. I have virtual machine manager running where we can see they also jump up, and you can like follow along what it's doing here. But it won't be that interesting, I think. Anyway, then I thought I would show how to provision. Yeah, I have documented how to use BMO without copy and CAPM3. So that's also in here. You can just go ahead directly and add some user data and provision a bare metal host. But I wanted to show this HA proxy way of doing it. So this I have already done. I got the cluster template, which is just straight from our repo. Yeah, this part is a bit long. It's just the pre-kubeadm commands for installing container runtime and stuff like that. I didn't want to use like a pre-baked node image because that hides stuff. Like you never know what's in there. So what I did in here is actually, where did I have the, yeah, here you can see I'm just downloading straight from Ubuntu's cloud images. This is just a plain cloud image, and this is all it takes to get it to a Kubernetes node. That's why it's a bit longer. But those variables I have already set. So we should be able to do, we should deploy HA proxy, runs also in Minikube. You can check that. Container creating. While we wait for that, let me just grab, so cluster API endpoint host, I'm going to use Minikube, Minikube's IP, that's where HA proxy is running. So that's what I will use as cluster API endpoint. Then I'm taking the cluster template, and based on all these variables up here, just templating that out like that. I'm putting this in a customization. Actually, you can see it in here. It is just for adding the IPAM stuff, and yeah. So the cluster is, I'm adding the cluster there, and there is already a customization for patching that by adding the IP pool and making sure that the cluster is using that. So let's deploy this. It should, yeah, you can see it was ready with the inspection already. So now it's starting to provision. How this is set up for the control plane endpoint is that HA proxy has as backing servers all the IPs configured in the IP pool, which is just 3 IPs in this case. So if I'm creating a cluster of 3 control planes, I know that's all the IPs I need. And then I can just set HA proxy to point to them. I will show you, yeah, if we do this, let's actually do it in a separate terminal so I don't get stuck in this one. So let's open this one up. Now it's still provisioning, so we shouldn't see much here. Sorry. Yeah, all the backends are down. These are the control planes that will come up. But this is what HA proxy is just statically configured to have 3 backends, and they are the 3 IPs from the IP pool. Let me show you the IP pool actually. Is that correct? Yeah, KCP. Yeah, this is the IP pool that I have put there, and it's the KCP IP pool. So I could have another one for workers if I wanted. And then HA proxy would just still point to this one. Let's see how it is going now. It's provisioning, and we can check host 1. No, this was host 2. We can open host 1 here and see how it's progressing. I think it should be pretty much ready to reboot. Yeah, there it goes. And after this, it will come up, install containerd. No, was it cryo or containerd? Anyway, that plus CubeADM and the stuff needed for that. So it's coming up. And after that, we should, yeah, we see it, the bare metal host is provisioned, and we should eventually see also the machine and MetalCube machine become ready. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free. No questions. But you can see it has now a consumer, it's provisioned, and in the logs here, you can see it installing. There was kubelet, kubectl, kubeadm, and now it's doing kubeadm init. So it should come up momentarily. And once that is up, we will also see it turn green in here. Let's see. Provisioning, provisioning. Okay, so I was talking slightly too fast, but now it's coming up. But yeah, half the point of this is to, well, document how to do this stuff without the black box that the current devenv is, and also get something that you can run on your own laptop without risking too much. There you go, it's up and it started provisioning the next one. So now if I refresh that one, we have one that is green. And that's basically it, the whole demo. All it takes to create a cluster in, I think this was less than 400 lines in this README at least. So a very, very basic setup. It cannot replace it yet, but I think this gives a good idea on how we could simplify things and potentially start over in for some use cases at least. If you found this useful, please check the pull request. And feel free also to like steal ideas from this to the MetalCube book, like the user guide. I mean, we could definitely use some of these descriptions here for that.
Thank you. From my side, for me, this whole new approach for the development environment that you've shown, for me, this is very similar to projects like Kubernetes from scratch. And I was wondering that it might be nice to have in our user guide everything under this MetalCube from scratch umbrella, which would be like a teaching material basically. So people could use it as a tutorial to build their own MetalCube and get familiar with the actual core components and have less noise, because I completely agree that the devenv is not a learning friendly environment. I would not get rid of devenv, but for learning and learning these approaches and using some of these in certain CI workloads is very, very useful. So for me, the next step would be propagating this to this sort of MetalCube from scratch documentation into user guide. I think this should be in user guide, not in our like research notes.
Yeah, true. I just put it there first for like having it
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
Yeah, good first place for it, but I think this has more potential.
Yeah, I can definitely open a PR. Maybe I need to rework some parts of it, but part of the inspiration for this was actually from the copybook where they have like the quick start, you know. This is much closer to that than what we currently have.
Yeah, I think that's very good, and I think that if it gets into the user guide as this MetaQ from scratch, then we can continue this showing it on the BM lab, showing it on real hardware. That okay, you made it from scratch. Now you can do it from scratch on real hardware, and people would understand the concepts more than just with them. Yeah, that's
totally.
my opinion. Yeah.
I guess one takeaway from this is I would very much like to get rid of like the static ironic bare metal operator customizations that I have now like included in all this. It would be nice if we can use the one from BMO repo directly. Like this one here, it includes, you recognize this from upstream, but it's exactly the same. It's just I had to include stuff to make it work. For example, in basic auth, you need to have like credentials to work with or stuff like that. And I'm not saying we should include credentials in the repo directly, but you can do it in, let's say, in different ways so that it's the last step that you add your credentials. That's just the last step that the user does. And we can like in here, we can provide the patch already. And then you say, please add this in your overlay.
Yeah, but in any case, I would not like recommend from my perspective to reuse anything from any existing repo. For me, it would be more useful if this would be like a clean room environment or a sandbox when you puzzle to everything together in like a one with one description, with one story behind it. And then the person who would experiment with it because of learning purposes or with a learning goal, then that person would see everything in one picture, wouldn't need to visit different repos.
Yeah, I think I agree. We want the same thing. It's just the deployment step that I want to have. Like, I don't see the usefulness of writing your own deployment manifests for BMO and Ironic from scratch. Like in here, we do cluster cattle init metal cube, and that's like enough to get CAPM3 and copy up. But for BMO and Ironic, it's
I see.
Let's say more complicated right now.
Yeah, but for BMO, and the main reason here is that we don't really have a nice packetized deployable something.
Yeah, but that's something I want to work on. But let me not take more time on this. Just feel free to check it out. Give me feedback if you try it out. It's very useful to have more people try this. Like there are still to-dos in it even. So yeah, please check it out. I will stop screen sharing and give back to Adam.
Yeah, thank you. But if anyone else has any comments, please feel free to share it. This presentation was today's main event, so for me this was the most important. But if there is nothing else, then we can continue with the outreach updates.
All right. Thanks. Just wanted to say that like it looks really, really nice. Thanks, Leonard, for that. And considering that we are going to start outreach next week, I'm probably going to steal some part of that because it's definitely easier to show how everything works from what you did than just using Metal3 Dev. So
thanks. Feel free to take what you want.
Expect some questions or some comments. Definitely, it's really nice. And yeah, on the outreach side, this is just basically a reminder that the project will go public next Monday, where all the accepted interns will receive their answer. So they will be able to see the projects and choose, and probably will start seeing people showing in on Slack or on the mailing list. So we're going to send a mail before the end of this week or beginning of next week, again as a reminder. But if you see people asking about the outreach project, please direct them to Imanshu or myself for details. Yeah, that's basically all. We're going to share the link to the project when it's public as well. Thank you. Oh, and of course, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact Imanshu or myself. Thanks.
Thank you. Sounds good. That really sounds good. That's going forward also. Very good. Thanks for organizing and keeping us updated.
Sure.
From me, there is just small general info. Today, the CI had a bad day. We've seen that Cloura, our infrastructure provider, struggled with a lot of network problems. So that was one side of the issues. We got incident reports quite a lot today. And then there was another issue that was catched by Mohamed, and he already pushed a fix, which was related to downloading the CAPI releases, and in the query that we send to GitHub to list the releases, we queried too little instances. So I think it was 30 release artifact or lines or I think releases that were queried. Mohamed raised it to 100, and this is kind of because of the nature of the API. But Mohamed, if you want to add something to it, please feel free to comment.
Yeah, I have pushed that PR as a workaround just to unlock the CI, but I created an issue to implement the pagination when requesting the GitHub API. So we'll just fetch the pages in sequence if we are looking for some resources there and doesn't exist in the first or the default page. Yeah, I think I can pick up that issue if it's not picked up once I have time.
Thank you. That was something that was like a hidden fault for a long time in the code. And thank you for improving on that. And then with this, we reached the PR review section, and there is one from Ricardo.
Yeah. So I put a note there. This is related to the Metal3 CI integration in Ironic upstream. There's a link to the POC that we did, Dimitri and I, upstream in Ironic. The CI is actually passing now. It's green. And so all the changes that are needed on Metal3 Dev Env are consolidated in the PR that I put there, which is currently not passing the CI because of one of the issues that you mentioned before. But yeah, it's quite a lot of commits. So whenever you have time, please have a look. It should not impact anything or not too hard that is already there. It's just to basically extend the Metal3 devenv and allow to run on on VMs and on non-Intel environments. We consider, for example, also AMD virtualization part, and yeah, other fixes for firewall and some other small things.
Thank you. That's actually is in itself a great general improvement. I once, I think, looked into the draft version of this. It was shared by Dimitri.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just great. I am touching on my local branch parts of the networking, so I hope I will have time to check this because it might affect what I'm doing, but in general it's very good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I think it will be very useful in the future because we will be able to test the ironic source directly in the ironic CI as soon as the patches come in. So we will see the effects of the ironic changes directly on Metal3 without waiting for RPMs or anything.
Yeah, that's great. I mean that you went into this direction, that you support basically upstream testing for our project. That's great. I think everyone wins with that. So thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So this was the PR request, and we have one thing left on today. This is the one issue that we have to triage. But before we continue with, it's not that, it's Mohammed's. So we have actually two. That wasn't there when I pre-triaged. So is there anything related to today's agenda, the PR request, announcements, anything that you would want to discuss? Yeah, if not, then we can continue. So this is one of the stories. This is a feature request related to LLDP, and IPA inspects and gathers LLDP data. I think I've seen it in the inspection results. I don't remember from the top of my head, but I believe the person who created the issue that it does, and that we are not using it. That's the main concern here. And what the issue asks for is that we, after the inspection happens and we have this data, then in the process of the CAPM3 and the IPAM handling the IP claims and the network data generation between each other, then they would take these LLDP data into consideration. We do already take inspection data into consideration for network data generation. For example, the interface names, interface MAC addresses, I believe, or the names are gathered from the inspection data. I think the MAC address. So this is not a foreign concept to get network info from the inspection data and use it for the IP claims or the network data generation. So from my side, I don't see an issue with it, but I'm also not an LLDP expert or network expert in general. So if you have some thoughts on this, let's hear it.
My only comment on the actual patch, I think there was a patch for that, was that LDP data is pretty large. So we definitely don't want an experimental host status. It's going to increase it like 3 times. And probably not even hardware data, maybe a separate CR. That's I left this comment on the patch. I don't remember if it was responded or not.
But as a feature, so if it's a separate CR, let's say, and then that we would take that CR or the object made instantiated from that CR into consideration when we generate network data. In principle, then you are fine with it, right? Do I understand it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
But I'm not the biggest network expert out there, so take it as a grain of salt.
So as it stands now, there are no one against it, and the only question is how it would be implemented. I think we should accept it because in general, this is a realistic use case that people would like to configure network data for nodes based on this this protocol. But I have a feeling that the person who made the issue won't create a design proposal for this. So it will probably land on somebody else's back, and someone else has to carry it. I have this feeling. So let's see what happens. But I will ask the person to let's discuss it.
I quickly checked the repo. Actually, there is a one PR. I think that's what Dimitri was mentioning. That is that should potentially fix this. But I quickly checked it. That adds all the LLDP information into the status, I believe, and I don't think that's a good idea either.
Yeah, and even this is just one step. So this is by itself is not usable. We would need to integrate it with IPAM and CAPM3 to handle this data, to make it into a usable network data for the nodes. So I think, let's say triage accepted. I'm willing to create a design proposal for this. During would this be an adequate answer? What do you think? Is it fine? Okay, I guess
Sounds
it's
good to me.
fine. Okay,
Looks
cool.
good.
Cool. Okay, so that was one that we triaged. And let's see how far this gets. And then we have another one, and this was the pagination that Mohammed mentioned. I think we already discussed this. This is a real problem. There is a workaround now, but this needs a better fix, not just increasing the listing, the number of listings on the page, but actual pagination. So I think that's fine. And I think it was kind bug. Yeah. So this was the two issue that we needed to triage. I checked all the others. There are no movement, and I actually removed some stuff from stale, but nothing important, nothing that we have not discussed. So is there any other question, topic, anything else you would like to discuss? Okay, if not, then thank you for your time. Have a nice rest of the day, and we will meet next week.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.